Good morning, and welcome to KeyCode Media's Inputs, Outputs, an almost new series dedicated to giving you short technical tutorials for the production, post-production, and audiovisual industries. Each presentation is going to run around 20 minutes and will be followed by live Q&A with you, the audience. I'm your host, Jeff Sangpil. EditShare's premise has been to make workflow and media management processes smarter for creative storytellers. They were founded in 2004, setting out to have a passionate understanding of their clients' opportunities and challenges. They started with EFS, their file system for shared media storage, and then expanded into media management for any nonlinear platform with Flow. That brings story editors, media sharing, and automation all to the same table. Now they have complete cloud-based, scalable ecosystems for any type of production you might have. Suffice it to say, they've been busy. While Nathan with EditShare is getting ready, did you know that KeyCode Media is an industry-leading systems integrator with a small army of engineers specialized in post-production, broadcast, and audiovisual solutions? If you need equipment, we have it. If you have a complex problem, we've likely solved it. If you need support, our engineers are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. At the end of EditShare's presentation, we invite you to all participate in the live Q&A. Please submit your questions via the Vimeo, Facebook Live, or YouTube chat. We will try our best to answer all of them. Nathan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you to KeyCode for hosting us today, and thank you all for attending. Flow Asset Management has traditionally been exclusive to EditShare storage solutions, but is now open to being used with a variety of storage solutions, not only your on-prem video storage, but a host of other LTO archive solutions, various cloud storage platforms, as well as anything that can be shared over standard network protocols like SMB and NFS. And the idea here is that Flow becomes the central portal to access and manage all of this storage for more of a comprehensive Flow experience. There are a few modules here within Flow, and we'll kind of take a look at each one of those. In Flow Control, which is the web-based admin application, this is where you might configure that third-party storage. So underneath the Storage tab, you're able to manage and add other storage locations. So again, support for various cloud instances, LTO backup solutions, and network shared storage. And what this allows you to do is proxy all of the footage and all of the assets that may live on that storage, and then allow Flow to move things back and forth, and then have one comprehensive window where you can view things. And we set up scans to do that, and scans can be automated. You can also have watch folder scans, and basically that detects the video assets, proxies them, and then allows you to view them within Flow. As far as user interfaces go, there are really two user interfaces. There's a web-based light interface called Airflow, and this is good for proxy viewing, adding markers and comments, adding metadata, creating rough cut string out sequences, as well as uploading and downloading files. So let's take a look at Airflow first. User logs into Airflow, they see all of their storage. If they know their file system, they can certainly browse right to it and start working with those files. You can also do a search for material, and you can do a very quick search, which searches every metadata field of every asset you can see, or you can do an advanced search, which allows you to add filters and then filter by metadata. So whether you browse or search for clips, a user can then watch the clips here in the web browser. These proxies that Flow is working with, these are timecode accurate and frame rate accurate, which is very helpful later when you're trying to relink back to your source material. You can update metadata on a clip or a number of clips. This also allows you to add markers and comments, and these markers and comments will transfer and drag and drop over into your NLE of choice later. One thing important about the Flow system is that we are NLE agnostic, so there are workflows and integrations for all of the major NLEs, depending on what kind of storage you're using, of course, and what kind of media you're using. So here a user can add metadata and add markers. They can also upload and download clips if they have the necessary permissions. You can download the proxy files or the original high-res media. And you can create projects here within Airflow as well. And this is a great way for a producer or an assistant editor to start screening footage, maybe pulling selects and stuff like that. So finding clips I like, I can simply drag those over into the project. If I like to, I could create a bin, and maybe I need a bin for B-roll. And again, just a way to start organizing my footage. I can drag clips over into my bin as well. So once I have clips in a project, I can open those up. I can edit the metadata and add markers, but now I can actually pull subclips as well. So using my I and O keys, I can mark in and out, add a subclip, and then that subclip can be renamed, can have its own metadata, and is now searchable. You can also create a rough cut string out sequence here, and we can do that by creating sequence. And we will call this Airflow rough. I can then drag subclips or clips into the sequence or down into the sequence tray. Those clips can be rearranged. And again, we can add markers onto the clips for easy access, drag and drop later into our NLE. And that's kind of the light web-based interface Airflow. So great for viewing proxies, great for producers and assistant editors to start cutting string outs, viewing dailies without leaving the production environment. Now there's a fit client as well. This is called Flow Story. Flow Story does install on Windows or Mac, and this streams the same proxies and accesses the same database as Airflow. So this can be used remotely from anywhere in the world into your server, hosted in the cloud or on site. You can see I can open any project I have access to or create a new project. Here's the project key code that someone created in Airflow just moments ago. We can open that project here. And when I do that, I have access to the clips, the subclip we made, the sequence we made, and all of the storage locations as well. So again, my cloud storage, my on-prem spinning disk storage, as well as maybe my IT backup storage. But in addition, here in Flow Story, you can access local files on your local machine and import those directly into the project. And we also have integrations with Amazing Music Tracks, Audio Network, and Pond 5, where you can use stock footage directly in the app, purchase it within the app, and use it directly in the sequence as well. So if we go back to our sequence, if you recall in Airflow, we were making a string out. It's a kind of a rough cut shot list. And that is true here. If I wanted to open that, I could open it here. I could also drag it over into my NLE if I were on site with my storage mounted. But here I'm able to now take this to the next level. So let's say I'm working remotely and I wanted to do kind of a multi-track edit and get this prepared for my NLE of choice. I can add multiple tracks here, and this is going to let me do much more of a full edit. Again, streaming proxies, also combining local footage as well as stock images and music. And we can do a lot of things in Flow Story, which are much more of a full NLE experience. So you have access to transitions. You can also record voiceover right in the timeline. And then, of course, you have VFX and, You have VFX and audio tabs as well for doing color correction, basic effects, and audio effects as well. There are a number of ways to get your material out of Flow Story. So you can right-click on a sequence and launch an automation that would maybe archive this or transcribe it. You could also selectively download all of the media within this sequence, and that would include options for high-res material or proxy material. And then the other thing you can do is drag and drop into your NLE of choice. So again, you would set your drag and drop format based on the NLE you're using. In my case, I'm demoing with Premiere today, so I will set it for XML. And once that's done, I can open up Premiere. And I should be able to just drag and drop this sequence into Premiere. And that should bring over the links to the high-res assets as well as the markers and comments we may have put on the sequence. So this is a great, easy workflow for both on-site and remote uses. And we're just skimming the surface of what Flow Story can do here. But that is the gist of Flow Story. There is also an Adobe Premiere panel for Flow. So if we go back into Adobe and we launch the EditShare panel, we can see all of our media spaces here. We can browse through that material or search through that material. And once we find that material, we have several options. This is also streaming the proxies, so could be used remotely from anywhere in the world. Let's say I find some clips I would like to import. I can just select those clips and I can click import. Now what this does is it caches the Flow proxies locally to your local machine, and imports the high res as well, and auto links those. So if we look at the properties of this clip, we can see that the path leads us to the high res file, and it also has a proxy path to a file that's been cached on my local machine. So this allows me to log out, unmount the storage, work remotely with Premiere. If I didn't have access to that high-res material, I could still cut in Premiere with this file. I didn't have to generate these proxies separately. These are the proxies that Flow generates. And now I can toggle between the high-res asset and the proxy file. So this is huge for remote workflows as well. And right within the panel, you have the option to upload clips, including XML sidecars, associating the project file back into Flow, and also the ability to do reviewing and markers, just kind of like we did in Airflow with markers and watching the proxies here as well. So very cool way to access Flow right within the Premiere panel. The last kind of piece in the puzzle for Flow is Flow automation. And that's exactly what it sounds like. Flow automation lets a user create workflows that can be repeated and consistent. And it's a very, very nice graphical interface. It basically allows you to make a workflow using triggers, metadata inputs and filters, and execute tasks. So we won't go too deep into Flow automation today, but this is kind of one example. I've got a metadata field in Flow. It's called request approval. It's just a checkbox. Checking that box could kick off an automation that checks to see who the producer is from a drop-down menu. Maybe it makes an H.264 for them and puts it in their folder and sends them an email notification. So these can be, really complex, really simple. And then there are also ways to automate automations that show up in Flow Story, and you can allow users to execute those as well. So I have an automation here called Send to QC. This sends a clip out to my QC server, and if it passes, the metadata tag QC status gets changed to pass. If it fails, it gets failed. But the QC module also feeds that metadata back into Flow. And the same thing with this transcription integration. I have a trigger that a user can manually trigger that sends it out to my transcription server and feeds that transcription back into Flow. So if we're in Flow Story and we look at a clip here, let's see, let me switch project actually. AI demo. So essentially what those automations do is a user is allowed to launch that automation directly from where they can archive a clip, they can send a clip to QC or transcribe it. And that information comes back in to Flow underneath the analysis tab here. So you would have markers and comments for all of your QC data, all of your audio data as well. And all of that would show up. It is then searchable, and just like markers would drag and drop into most NLEs. And again, that's just skimming the surface of what we can do with Flow automation. But I do want to save some time for Helmut. So if you do have any questions about this, please feel free to chat them in, and we will do some Q&A very shortly. I just need a second here to reset. So this is a good example here. I just unmounted the storage with the path to the high-res material, but I still have all my proxies online and can work with those files. Let us go to Close this project. All right. So Helmut is a set of workflow tools. It consists of 4 modules, and this does have integrations into Flow, which are pretty awesome. But this is specifically for Adobe Premiere users. And Helmut FX is the project workflow management suite with support for Premiere, After Effects, and Audition projects. There are 4 software modules in the Helmut suite, and each of these address specific functions. So Helmut FX really focuses on project creation of folder structures, managing user settings and permissions, and offering your editors a centralized place to create and check in and check out Adobe projects. And we'll take a look at that one first. So when I log into Helmut FX, this is going to be my web-based dashboard for accessing all of my Premiere projects. Now you can see a couple things happen. My storage mounted automatically, and I got a little pop-up message that says, hello, Nathan, welcome to Helmut. You look sharp today. Have a great edit. And that's ridiculous, of course, but the point is it's an automated task, and something got executed just by the fact that I logged in and I to a certain group, or my username to a certain username. So here in this dashboard, you can check out your projects, and this is where the editor would come and interface with projects. And the idea is you can keep them out of the file system. They can also create a new project here. So when I add a project, I'll give it a name, give it a tag. I belong to certain groups, so I choose my group. I choose from categories within that group based on different jobs. And this is going to choose a template. Within that template, I can create a combination of any combination I like of Premiere, After Effects, or Audition projects. If I have existing projects, I can import those and kind of shoehorn them into my template. And then optionally, I have metadata fields here. These are all highly customizable, and you can add as many of these as you like. And so when I create the project, you'll notice it didn't ask me where I wanted to save it. It doesn't ask me a lot of questions, but it goes ahead and it creates that project for me. And now I can open it and check it out right from here. Again, the idea would be to keep the editor out of the file system, but just so you see what's happening, in the background under a predetermined file location, I've got now a project folder with a template structure inside of it. I have my new Premiere project file created from a template. And this is where everything for this particular job is going to live now. So if we go back, we can check out that project by clicking on it. It's going to create a lock for us. So that's locked. It sets our scratch disk locations for us. And now we have a preset project just the way we like it. A sequence has been dynamically renamed with the name of the project. And all of that can be kind of scripted and customized. The magic behind the scenes here is called the streams engine. And so for each of these triggers, you're able to set up automation streams. For instance, we did connected. That was when I logged in. 2 things happened. It mounted storage for me, and it said hello with a little pop-up message in my Mac. The other thing we did was we created a project. And when we created a project, this did a number of things for us. Let's see what actually happened. And this is, again, where you kind of set up this whole workflow. So we created a project, and based on the name of that project and the template I chose, it chose that template, duplicated it, created all the folders in a predetermined location on the file system, renamed a sequence or a composition based on whether it was an After Effects project or a Premiere project, and then replaced that content within the sequence. It also set all of our scratch disks. So this solves a huge pain point for Adobe Workgroup users. You never have to worry about your scratch disk locations or different users using different scratch disks. Everything is there. The other thing it did is it created a matching project in Flow. So if we go look back at the Flow story, we can see there's a KeyCode demo project. And this is just a kind of a great way to standardize things and make it really easy to create new projects. And so those are the automations we executed by activating those triggers. And you can see we're only scratching the surface here. There's tons of triggers, tons of ways to customize this. But now that we've done that, we can kind of move over to the next module, which is Helmut IO. Now, just like FX kind of focuses on the project management and the file system management, Helmut IO leverages the power of Adobe Media Encoder to local edit machines or dedicated AME render nodes, meaning you can offload all of your transcoding to dedicated machines, say in the machine room, or other machines running media encoder that happen to be in your facility. Helmut IO has its own streams and, again, more triggers. So there's some really cool stuff you can do here with auto importing and exporting. So if we go back into Premiere and we open up our Helmut panel, this is going to allow us to do a number of things. So as an editor, I may just want to grab a clip off my desktop or off my local hard drive, and I might want to drag that into my project and start editing. This is a problem in a shared storage environment because the user that opens this project next may have to go searching your desktop and find that file. So what we do here is we grab some clips from our local machine, we just drag them in, and we can start editing right away. It doesn't slow the editor down at all. But in the background, you can see what's happening here is those clips are being put in the right place on the file system, in the right codec, a proxy is being generated and linked, and those clips are being moved into my dailies folder because I set a rule saying anything that's a video file should go in the dailies folder. And so those get moved there. And again, if we go digging around in the file system, we'll see that within that predetermined job folder, we have a folder called Assets, Premiere Pro, Video, and now our clips live there in the right codec, and they have their proxy, and those are also linked and can be toggled in Premiere as well. So all of that happened behind the scenes. They got replaced in the project. It didn't affect the editor or slow them down, but the systems administrator gets a much more comprehensive setting and environment. So this works for export as well. You would do your exports here from the panel. Again, you choose a profile where everything's predetermined, the output location, the output codec, which machines are going to render this file, all of that's predetermined. Again, you have the option to tag it with metadata if you like, and then you run that export. Now, in my case, I'm running it here on my local machine using my media encoder, but again, that could be any machine in the facility that has media encoder. And what that did is it imported it back into my project as well, and put it in a specific location. Again, in this case, on the file system, but that could have been going straight out to a QC server or going straight to air. All of that can be automated so that the editor does not have to be worried about it or concerned. Again, we're scratching the surface. There's other ways to get files in and out with watch folders and stuff like that. But I'm going to go ahead and save this project, and I'm not going to close it yet. I'm just going to minimize it. And let's go back to our Helmut dashboard, and we'll switch to the third module, which is Cosmo. Now, Cosmo is a database that keeps track of all the assets as well as all of the projects. And not only the project files, but what's inside the project. So it is able to parse the Premiere, Audition, and After Effects projects and know what's inside them. And from here in the web browser, whether I have an Adobe license or not, I can log in, look through the contents of this project. We can see the exported cuts. This is the sequence I just exported. We can see the dailies folder has a couple of clips in it. And I can export directly from here, a clip or a sequence. So if I'm working remotely and I need these clips at home, I can export them using this function as well. You also have the ability to upload assets through this web interface. So when you upload an asset, you can, let's just do exactly what we did when we dragged assets into the project. We'll pick Eagle and Surfing. I could add a folder as well if I had a whole camera card. Again, I choose a profile, so everything's predetermined, and tag it with metadata if I like, and then upload it. Now what that does is it kicks off the same exact workflow that would have happened had the editor dragged those into his project. So as that's happening and the editor's here, they're working on the project, these clips are going to get transcoded, put in the right place in the file system, land in my dailies folder, again, while I'm working. So a great way for assistant editors to just start loading in footage while the editor is actually doing his edit. So while that's happening, we'll just let that happen. So Cosmo has its own streams engine as well, just like FX and IO, where you can set up web import and export. It is a database, so it keeps track of which files get used in how many sequences, and that way you have record of that and some statistics on the files as well as the internals of the project. The fourth and last module in Helmut is this Helmut FX module, and this has its own streams engine as well, and this manages functions like archiving or consolidating projects, or deleting or restoring or moving assets and projects between tiers. So while this is doing its thing for a second, there we go. So that finished. I just had to bump it a little bit. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to close this project. Now, when I close the project, if we go back to FX, we can see the lock will be released, the project is checked in, and now if I go back to Housekeeper, what I'd like to do here is run one of my last automations for you. I have a folder on my desktop called Checkout Location, just for this demo, but this could be a portable drive. This could be your archive storage. This could be cloud storage that you're connected to. And what I'm going to do with this project is, let's say I'm ready to consolidate it for archive, or I'm ready to check it out and take it home with me. I can consolidate the project here using Housekeeper stream. And what that's going to do is create a folder on my checkout destination with the project file, with all of the assets used in the project. And now it's also relinking those assets inside this project. So now I have a nice little bundled project either to go that's relinked, or this is my archive, and now everything's archived. And the very last stream I'm going to show you here is if we go back into the file system where we don't really need the editors to be going, we've got this key code demo folder and all of the assets inside. So I'm going to run one more stream, and this is a delete stream of this project. So not only is it going to delete the project from the database, it's going to delete everything associated with the project in a clean fashion. And this could be tied into an archive job as well. So archive everything in the project and then delete it. But in this case, we're just going to delete. And what that does is it kills the project, kills everything ever associated with it, and now it doesn't exist anymore. And that is Helmut. So again, we're just scratching the surface of all this stuff. And currently we are offering a limited time bundle for EFS storage, Flow, and Helmut software. And we'd be glad to schedule a more in-depth demo through KeyCode if anyone is interested. And that is about as much workflow goodness as I am allowed to pack into this time slot. So thanks again for joining us, and I will hand it back over to Jeff, and hopefully we can open it up for some Q&A.
We will definitely do that. Thanks, Nathan. Let's dive into the live Q&A. Everyone out there is encouraged to send your questions via the Vimeo, Facebook Live, or YouTube chat links. Let's get into what we've got so far already. Chad was asking, and I think you kind of answered that there at the end with some certain packages that are available. He was asking if Helmut is included with Flow or if it is a completely separate deal.
So it is a completely separate product, and you can have it without Flow. But right now we are running a pretty sweet deal with storage, Flow, and Helmut software included.
Awesome. EBF is asking, is there a connection between the NLE, the Flow story is set to export to, and what automation happens in relation to proxies? Is there any file system organization automation for Avid, the way Helmut FX does for Premiere projects?
The equivalent for the project organization that Helmut does, we don't have anything like that for Avid, but Flow does have drag and drop functionality into Avid. And in Flow Story, you choose your drag and drop format. You can either choose AAF if you're using Avid, XML if you're using any other NLE, basically. So if you are using Avid Media, whether it's on Avid's own storage or whether it's on EditShare storage, you can do that same workflow, that same functionality we showed. You just set the setting AAF and you're dragging and dropping into Avid.
Very cool. Brian is asking, let's say an AE needed to create a multicam sequence or something that couldn't be done in a web interface. Is there a way to push that into the editor's project?
There is a way to do that with Helmut if you're using Adobe. That could be scripted. That could be a custom automation. In fact, there is one automation where you drop all of the camera angles and the audio into a folder, and it multi-track sequence and pops that right into Adobe for you. If you're using Avid, or if you want someone to do that manually, they could certainly create a multi-track sequence in Flow Story, organize everything and stack it, and then drag that into kind of as a nested sequence into their NLE.
Very cool. Alex is asking, does the software support transcoding red footage, or how about Blackmagic footage? I'm assuming Blackmagic RAW.
Red for sure. Blackmagic, I'll have to double check on that. That's a pretty new one, the Blackmagic RAW. I'll double check on that. We'll do a follow up.
That sounds good. I mean, just from what I know, dealing with red IPV color spaces, there's usually there's plugins that kind of glue in there because they replace it every once in a while because they're constantly doing updates. Eric is asking, is there a similar panel for Avid similar to the Adobe panel, or is most of the integration with Adobe? And he says, I think this was our answer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Avid offers the same architecture where they're open to having extension panels, but what we do have is a Flow Send To module. So it's a little module that plugs in into your computer, and then from Avid you can send a sequence directly to Flow. But it's very different than the Premiere panel.
Understandable. Can remote users upload an entire Adobe project file into Flow?
They can upload the assets as well as the project file. Yes. So if they have all of that stuff in a folder, then you can upload that. Flow is kind of file agnostic. So we do build proxies for media files that are timecode accurate and frame rate accurate. But PDFs, Word docs, PROJ files, Avid bins, you name it, we can catalog it. You can tag it with metadata. You can search for it, and you can upload it and download it.
Well, that knocked off the other question that just appeared, assets other than video.
Yep.
One other question that came through is, are there still little red inflatable sharks?
So the little red inflatable shark is the mouse trigger for Lightworks. And if you are using Lightworks, you can still have the floating shark.
Yeah, I remember seeing the little red sharks as well when I was over at Universal back in the 90s.
Yeah, I have one down in my dock. It is the Lightworks icon, actually. So I don't know if anybody saw that during the demo.
Very cool. On the Helmut side, can the different modules of Helmut be picked up separately depending upon what you need, or is it kind of an all-in-one package?
So right now, the bundle, where it seems like we're giving it away, it does include all 4 of those modules. And so the rule is in purchasing them outside of this bundle special, you can have FX by itself, which is the project manager. You can have IO by itself, which is the media manager. And if you have both FX and IO, then you can add the other 2 modules. But Cosmo and Housekeeper cannot be used without FX and IO. And I'm sure that doesn't confuse anyone.
Yeah, dependent tasks. Makes sense.
Right.
Let's see, Eric is asking, how many tracks of HD video can you work with in a timeline? Premiere, Avid, I think it's really more of a Flow question. How many tracks of HD can be handled?
Sure. Well, since we're working with the proxies, we get a lot more mileage out of it, and your processor is going to get a lot more mileage out of it. So I know that you can create at least 16 video tracks. You might be able to create more than that. And once you're doing the drag and drop into Avid or Premiere, it's really just an XML or an AAF transfer. So I don't know that there's any limit there, but it's 16 or more in Flow. I know that.
Very cool. Alex is asking, how does cloud storage integrate with the software? Or actually, I mean, the real question there is, how does your software work in the cloud, I think?
Sure. So we do have an AWS offering where we can put the storage, the NLEs, everything in the cloud. But if we're talking about a hybrid model, Flow, you can configure Flow to see a Glacier bucket, an S3 bucket, Wasabi, whatever it is that you want to connect to, and then Flow sees that. You can then have Flow push files there, but you keep the proxies and Flow knows where they are. And if you want them back, you can do a restore from that cloud location. You can sync your on-prem to cloud and have Flow index that and even execute it and do that syncing for you. And since you have all those proxies from your cloud storage or from your LTO storage right there in Flow, you are able to edit with those and work with them in Flow. The only thing you can't do is drag them into Avid or Premiere because they either live in the cloud or they're on a tape somewhere. So you'd have to restore them before you drag and drop.
Understandable. And I know you guys have EFS in the cloud as well, so you can actually put the entire workflow, including the compute systems to run the editors, up into the cloud.
The entire thing, yep. And that includes Helmut, that includes the transcription software we showed, and the QScan, QC software. All of it can be virtualized in the cloud.
Definitely. Sam is asking, is Flow a standalone product? And in terms of media management, how does it compare to other asset management solutions such as Catdv? And he says, thank you.
Sure. So we've worked, I've known a lot of Catdv users, and at a reseller I used to work for, I have implemented Catdv as well. Flow is a lot simpler. It's really a tool, as well as the EditShare storage. It's a tool created by producers and by editors for storytellers, right? So you don't have to hire an integrator just to get the basic stuff done. So that's how it compares. It's also very NLE agnostic again, and we track all kinds of assets. Sorry, there was a first part to that question?
Actually, question.
Oh, is it standalone?
Yeah, is it standalone?
Right. So traditionally, it only worked with EditShare storage, but that is opened up now, and so you can have Flow to work with any storage, and it is standalone. There's also a 14-day trial of Flow that you can put on a VM. You can build your own server, and you can play around with it. So Keycode can help with that as well.
Definitely. Question here on Helmut: can a project be set to not do local exports on the editor system itself, but only do exports into the automation stack instead?
Yes. So when you create the export profile, you define what machine is going to render it, what AMA setting it will use, where it lands, and what happens to it. So all that is predefined, and all the editor has to do is choose that profile.
Helpful for security. Actually, The other security question here is, how much permission control can I have over a user's ability to run automations, etc., and can Helmut connect to my Active Directory? AD integration. Helmut
does have an AD plugin built right in. You just toggle it on and put in the AD information. And then as far as Helmut, it's very granular, the permission. There is an admin role and a user role, but even within that, you can allow them to run archive automations. You can allow them to not run any automations, basically, and just let them check in and check out projects. It's very, very granular. And that's the same with Flow. In Flow, you have very granular control over which applications a user can use and which functions they can execute. Understandable.
Another question from Eric. Are there classes and training available for Flow? Getting really in depth into it.
Sure, we have some videos online, and they're all very quick, trying to cram a lot of information into a short amount of time. But we do offer on-site training as well as online training. Usually, when we commission and sell a system, we try to insist on training because we want everyone to get off on a good foot and have a great experience. And so, yes, on-site, online, there's lots of different training available. We also have the EditShare Academy online, which coming soon, I don't have the date, but coming soon there will be an end users course, not just for systems administrators that own EditShares or Flow, but for editors that use it or need to be power editors and just want to know more. So keep an eye out for that as well.
That makes sense. And you guys have, in addition to the package, I know you guys do have an all-in-one server that kind of does everything at the kind of starting level as well, don't you?
Sure. So we have our EditShare, the EFS 200, which is our smallest offering, and the EFS 300. Both include multiple seats of Flow. So the asset management doesn't require a different server. It's not a separate license. It's included with most of our storage offerings. And right now, the bundle edition adds the Helmut software, but Flow is pretty much included with most of our storage offerings.
Awesome. I'm not seeing any other questions coming through. So Nathan, thanks very much for taking the time to dive into Flow and to Helmut. A lot of power there. A lot of information in a small little package for everybody. We here at Keycode can, basically set up these discussions to find out if Flow and Helmut and EditShare Storage is a good fit for you and your workflow and your creative needs. Thanks again for joining us, and thanks to everyone for another great edition of Inputs Outputs. I'm Jeff with KeyCode. Have a great day and stay safe.
Thanks all.